Okay, so um, thank you very much for joining. Dhaval, Ashok, I saw Pankaj also online. And Joe, my sales genius. Awesome, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining. And I really, this is our fourth such meeting. I really, the first word I have to, and Alexander is also there. So in my gallery, I just see a few names. So I'm just trying to set up. So um, thank you, everyone, one and all, for joining. A special thank you to Matt Zimmer. We'll go through an introduction round pretty soon. But again, thank you all for joining. Okay. Um, Today, so just by way of background, we are having this weekly Power Lunch series. Power Lunch was I originally had it Lunch and Learn, and Matt, my friend, came up. He's a marketer, and he said, Ravi, power lunch, man. So I love that word, power lunch. So we're going to call it Mobility Forum Lunch Series. We've been looking at different at the evolution of the automotive industry, right? We had this idea for the past 2 or 3 years that there is a transition coming. Who knew, right? And so we have been talking about different topics. It's an open forum for conversation. I do have Frank will certify to this that I love PowerPoint, right? So at one point, at some particular point, I will have a few slides going on, but it's an open conversation, and I just have the PowerPoint as a guideline just to focus our conversation. But obviously, this is an open roundtable format. Today, we are going to be discussing business implications, countermeasures, and a strategy for the automotive value chain going forward, right? I thought about lots of names, but I landed up on this. Essentially, we are all in this midst of COVID, whatever we will call it, the new normal. We have been, we're trying to see how our industry that we all love so much is going to um, is going to be affected, and what we want to learn is how different people are dealing with it and what they are doing. This is an idea that came actually out of Frank Ferreira last week, and we thought we'll do this. And again, conversation roundtable format, just a little bit of a background. Okay, I'll go into introductions in just a little minute. So let me lay out the back agenda out here. So what we'll do is we'll go around. I wanted to set up a little bit, then we'll do introductions, and then look at a little bit of current state of affairs, and then open discussion. But again, I'll come to that in just a little bit. Introductions in just a little bit, okay? Couple of background stuff, a little bit more about us. Traction Labs, Frank Ferreira and myself, we are with Traction Labs. We have been over the past 2.5 to 3 years working. We are a boutique consulting company focused on enabling growth and transformation. And what we have been, and what we have been doing over the past 3 years is telling the industry that there is this dramatic shift to mobility. And we define mobility as the new experience that customers are demanding instead of this shift from ownership. Customers who are hyper they're expecting a hyper customized, on demand, everywhere enablement experience instead of this I go to a store, buy something, and buy the metal, drive the metal out. There are various technologies that are enabling the transformation. This is something we were talking about for the past 3 years, right? And we said, hey, there's change coming, right? And the transition from ownership to experiencing a brand, right? And we tried to put this in very good context, and we saw this in the LA Auto Show, where Elon Musk actually took on, brought in the Cybertruck, right? Which I think we are in the midst of that greatest disruption in the automotive industry. We were saying all this till January, made some presentations. Everybody said, yeah, 18 million SAR going on 19. Put technology, who cares, right? But then we came out with these two things that change our overall landscape, right? COVID came in, and then we are in the midst of oil wars also. So all these three things coming in accelerated what our hypothesis was going into this, into our business proposition of growth and transformation, and this accelerated need for growth and transformation in this industry. And I think this has disrupted, has caused a whole lot of disruption. Okay, so or as we call it, as we look at it, or is it an opportunity for transformation, right? We offer, just by way of background, a little bit more as we go into introductions. Traction Labs, we specialize in helping, we are an advisory, boutique advisory platform that helps you develop, explore, develop, and execute a growth playbook. Over the past couple of weeks, we have taken all our services and condensed it into this 12-week format so that we can help companies, or small and large, develop, corporations small and large, develop their new war room and a new playbook within 12 weeks. If you had a playbook till January, buddies, it's gone out of the window. Together with Strategic Vision, we are in the process. We are able to help you come in and develop your war room. We are the guys who can enable you get back on track. Okay, so that is a little bit of a background. Okay, I'm going to go around the introductions, go do introductions, and have a conversation with everybody, welcome everybody as we go forward. I want to start with Frank, who is my colleague here at Traction Labs, and the brains behind a lot of these things, and my mentor for a very, very long time from Hyundai. So Frank, you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll go around the gallery here as we.
Sure.
Okay, Frank.
Yep. Hi. I am retired, formerly executive vice president at Hyundai, and have been doing consulting for about 3 years now. Passionate about mobility, especially among some other areas.
And Frank brings this immense amount of experience and executive experience in transforming Hyundai, going through 3 transformations in Hyundai, right? So I think this particular conversation is very ideal. And thank you, Frank, for tuning in. I appreciate that. I'm going to go around the table next on my gallery. And what I do is I just follow the gallery out here. So Alexander Edwards from Strategic Vision is joining us, and he's from Strategic Vision. Alexander, you want to give us a brief introduction?
Sure. President of Strategic Vision. Our main focus is to understand how and why consumers make decisions so we can help increase advocacy, loyalty, retention, sales. Been doing this since the 80s, and there we are.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And we have Alexander with Strategic Vision. We have partnered Traction Labs, and Strategic Vision has partnered together also in creating this new platform together. So, and I'm glad to represent Strategic Vision in India exclusively. So amazing partners. Strategic Vision does some incredible value-centered, psychology-based market research work, which should be, anybody looking at market research should go to Strategic Vision to do that, to take a look at it, follow them up. They're awesome. I want to introduce, next on the gallery is the guy who's the brains behind the technology behind this, right? So Zoom is awesome, but keeping it all straight and helping me move from Meetup to this new platform of entrepreneurship is Matt Zimmer. Matt, you want to just give a little bit, a brief about yourself? And
Yeah. You bet. Thanks, Ravi. I'm an entrepreneur from Orange County. Have met Ravi and just really excited about what he and Traction Labs are doing. So doing my part to help support him. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Matt. And thanks for all your help here. So you'll see OC Engine prop up. That's the platform that we are using to do these calls on a regular basis. So please give him props to Matt. Thanks a lot. Next on the screen is a visitor, and thank you for joining. Hopefully a regular from now on, Mr. Joe Ingram, Sales Genius. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you, Robbie. Hi, everybody. Joe Ingram, Sales Genius. What I do is I help companies convert more of their virtual prospects into actual closed deals. So whether it's social media, internet website, or your phone calls, I help to convert more. I can help in store as well if you have a brick and mortar but that's what I do. And thank you for the invite. And I've been in the automotive business for over 20 years, and I love selling.
Absolutely. And Joe is a trainer. Joe had a speech. Joe, I'm part of this Thai SoCal group also. So I run a Connect for a forum. And Joe was our special speaker last week, and he's a fantastic speaker, incredible amount of experience in sales, training, and stuff like that. So we are looking forward to having you online regularly, Joe, because there's so much that's going on. I think a lot of our presentation, our thought starts with how sales will change, right? This experience from ownership, this change from ownership to experience is a huge thing, and dealers are going to be affected. So thank you very much for joining.
My pleasure.
Next on my gallery is Pankaj. Want to talk about, thank you for joining, and want to talk a little bit about, do a quick introduction?
Good afternoon, all. Pankaj Dayal. My firm is PNR Financial Services, LLC. I work in a very specific area of the investment business, which is retirement plans for businesses, and a little different from the folks on the panel, but I do have some automotive background. I was a civilian member with the Fleet Services Division of the NYPD. I spent almost 19 years with them, and I've been in the investment business for about 19 years now.
Nice. Thanks a lot, Pankaj, for joining. Dhaval, you want to give Dhaval, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Ravi. And I'm excited to get to know the group. Again, my name is Dhaval Kapadia. I am a fractional CFO. I help businesses with their business and financial strategy. And hey, John. And I am sort of a self-proclaimed expert on Tesla and electric mobility, future of electric mobility, things like that. So I'm sort of coming behind enemy lines and sort of wanting to learn more about the automotive, the old version of the automotive industry, and how, what the future holds for that industry. And hopefully sort of understand how that'll impact Tesla and the plans that they have.
Excellent. I think that's going to be a big part of the conversation. I don't think I have too many slides of Tesla here, but I think that's an interesting thing. What will happen to EVs as we go forward, and what companies are doing on this. Last person on the list, and thank you, on this gallery here, Ashok Madana. You want to introduce yourself?
Well, I am here to learn about your industry. You can say I'm an audience. My name is Ashok Madan. Basically, I'm a real estate investor for many, many years. On the side, I did work for County of Los Angeles in IT, and I retired 10 years ago as IT manager. And basically nowadays we're just looking for real estate investments, and investing our money we are holding on to cash for looking for some good deals. But anyway, concerning this event that you're having, I wanted to learn more about automobile and how they're going to evolve. We recently bought Tesla Models X, but we got the delivery. Although we bought it in December for our anniversary gift to my wife, but they didn't give the delivery till middle of March, and we didn't have a chance to really use it much because of this COVID-19 situation. So anyway, I'm here to learn as much as I can. Good to know Dhaval Kapadia knows a lot about Tesla, so maybe I'll connect with him sometime.
Hey,
I also own and drive a Tesla, so.
I'm sorry.
We have experts. Alexander has done so much work on, they have incredible amount of new vehicle research on Tesla. Frank is also very, very familiar. He launched the EV platform for Hyundai also. So incredible experience. Very quickly, let's get into this setup. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Hopefully you guys will join in regularly and enjoy this conversation. Jump in. Our goal is to talk about the effect and countermeasures and what people are doing, right? So please jump in. Frank, I'm just going to go through some of the slides that I set up, but Joe, Frank, Alexander, everybody, okay, jump in. So set up here, a little bit of a background. I had this slide, this part of the slide was from last time. Are we in trouble, right? Last time we hypothesized that we are in trouble with a different from an economic standpoint and from a purchase reason standpoint. Now I think we're looking at implementation, right? And so I call it the story behind the mask, right? So we see these long lines. Industry, there's a new. This is a new way of life, right? Long lines, waiting, people in masks. You go to a dealership, you don't shake hands. You want to test drive, you have this guy behind the mask, and you have to go with him in the mask. Ford and every company is looking into medical equipment. If you take a look at Twitter, we did a Twitter feed analysis earlier yesterday, and there were more than 65 to 70% of the companies, all they were talking about is masks, injection, test kits and stuff like that, rather than new models coming out, right? So there's a huge shift, and this has suddenly become a new way of life. And for the automotive industry, this is huge, right? So March expected sales. I thought I'll get some sales charts and pump our enthusiasm up, but I didn't find much news there. I don't think it's all that bad, but 39% year over year, 39% in March, which is absolutely devastating. Nissan down about 40%. People who have seen this data, this is Ward Intelligence data, right? Total down about 39%. Forecast is for April to be down between 60 and 70%, May to be down between 40 and 70%, right? Something that Frank always looks into, used vehicle sales, which is also a very good indicator, versus the same day next week. So these guys, Cox Automotive, did this analysis of year-over-year change and year-over-year change and the same day of the week, right? They went through the same days, and they see this minus 63% change over 2019, which is really that industry. I mean, I know we were supposed to have Mike join us, and he's from the dealership. But Joe, this is a dealership story, and it's really tough, right? Inventory again, the inventory is starting to build up, right? Kia, the top highest inventories obviously are this. Stuff that we look at very actively are Hyundai because of our background. A Lincoln perhaps, Acura 142. Kia is an anomaly, 43, but they had started doing some stuff ahead of time based on the fact that they had advanced warning in Korea. They also were in the midst of a model change, and they did not go through with it. So they kind of 43 days. I'm not sure that's a good thing or a bad thing. Any thoughts on that before I go to the trucks and model years? But inventory is starting to build up. I think the story is going to become very much more bleak pretty soon.
Yeah, Ravi, I think I think that's a big question mark, right? There have been people talking about potentially in the future not enough inventory. But the question, and I think if you put the inventory into real numbers, dealers are sitting on, I think the number I've seen is 3.7 million vehicles in inventory. So easy math, rounded up to 4 million. And if the annual selling rate drops to 13 million, that's easily a 90-day supply. We're not sure what the final numbers will be for sales for April. But I would say dealers have at least a 90-day supply of vehicles today. And they normally would like to have a 60-day supply. So it's going to balloon to a higher number because April sales are going to be really poor. So the math is going to say dealers are over 90-day supply of cars, and they really don't need to buy any more cars. So we're going to have some manufacturers start production again here very shortly. And then the question is, are dealers really going to buy those cars? The overarching question is going to be, when do consumers come back to the marketplace?
Yeah.
And those are some of the things that I'd like to talk about today in terms of, what do people think in terms of how long this recession is going to last, and some of the other implications. I don't mean to interrupt you right
No,
now.
no, you're not interrupting. No, this is an open conversation, guys. That's the reason why this is a round table. That's why I started the conversation with you, but no, you're not interrupting at all, guys, at all, Frank. I'm just looking through this, so please jump in anytime. The mics are all open for everybody.
So just continuing that line of thought,
right.
From what I've read, the typical recession lasts about 9 months. But in this case, we've never had a situation where social distancing has been a factor. So although, you could say a typical recession would be 9 months and we'd be out of this by the end of the year, and certainly see some recovery, well before that. Social distancing, I think, is going to create a problem for, I think we're saying 12 to 24 months, right? Concerts are not going to go on. Stadiums are probably not going to reopen anytime soon. And that then means more people will be unemployed for a longer period of time. If the decision is you can have restaurants but half the number of seats, you can have classrooms open but half the number of students in those classrooms, and there's lots of implications to social distancing, which would say that we're going to have continued high unemployment. And the question is, what does that do to auto sales? And then, as I step through this, I think May is going to be an interesting month. I think you showed the chart on used vehicle sales falling off the table. A component of used vehicle sales is the auction sites where these dealers go to buy cars, and the auctions essentially are closed, so the auction volume is down by 90%. So that has multiple implications. One is the value of used vehicles is way down, in some cases as much as 30% or 40%. And that's going to encumber people's ability to go trade their existing car in for a new car. So that's on one side of the ledger. I think that's a significant problem for new vehicle sales. The other big factor is leasing. And there has been a huge increase in leasing over the last 4 years, which means we're going to see a huge number of leases expire. And that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 million vehicles are going to come off lease this year. And we're seeing the leasing companies and the banks and the finance companies start to react to this decline in used car values by extending lease terms. So somebody whose lease is about to expire this month, it's really bad news for the bank, because this vehicle now has depreciated significantly, and the bank's going to take a hit. Right. So what they're offering the consumer is stay in your car and don't worry about returning it. Keep it, keep it for another 3 or 4 or 6 months.
Right.
When the used car market returns.
Yeah.
So, the impact of that is no new leases, no new sale for vehicles. Right. And then the other, the other implication, or not implication, but the other potential effect of what we've just gone through with COVID and work at home is, will work at home continue, and will that, leave people to say, gee, I really don't need a second car. This is something, Ravi, you and I have talked about. Will it now, will we see a shift to subscription services or fractional ownership, where people say, gee, I am going to work at home and maybe I don't need that other car payment, or my spouse has been laid off,
Right.
and I got to figure out how I'm going to save some money. And if we've only going to have one income, then let's get rid of the car. So those are some of the things I'm pondering right now to kind of understand, how fast will the recovery be? And I'm beginning to think the recovery is going to be much slower than the government would like. And despite all the cash that's flowing into the marketplace, if people don't have a job and don't see the prospects for a job in the future, they're not likely to spend money, particularly a big expense like purchasing a new car. And now there may be, used cars may recover because they're going to be much cheaper. And we may see a lift depending on the price points. I've heard people talk about used vehicles under $14,000 might see an uptick.
Yeah, and that's where I think this one, absolutely great points, Frank, and I'm looking forward to talking a lot more. So I've built some of these charts around the place. I think you're dead on. I think if you look at the 2007, 2008, 2009 recession, coming out of it, we said, hey, listen, this Gen Y guys really don't want to drive, and they hung on, they created Uber. Literally, people were going, they preferred alternate modes of transportation and primarily driven by more Uber, and that is what that shift towards mobility was. When we did some calls to, when I did some calls to dealers over the past few weeks, what I'm hearing is a lot of those who are open, of course. A lot of people are coming back. Those Uber drivers who are not getting Uber rides anymore in that gig economy are coming back to return it. And what they're asking for are vans, right? And while we are looking at a huge bunch of truck things coming up, I think from an opportunity standpoint, I think it's going to be interesting, right? You came out of that recession creating an Uber economy. You come out in this recession, this is actually social distancing. You really don't need two cars anymore, right? I mean, do you need two cars? Is it working from home, coming back and tying this together and saying, hey, listen, if social distancing, a new office workplace forces people to work from home a lot more. Going back to that question, I didn't like it, Gen Y, which is now becoming buying age, the prime buying age. Do they use that as a thing for one car, right? And then, where do these gig guys go, right?
And when you can go out again,
right,
will you be comfortable? Can Uber and Lyft convince you that their vehicles have been sanitized?
right, exactly,
And that their drivers are germ free?
True.
I think that's going to be part of their initiative is going to be let us feel comfortable that we're safe in your vehicles.
True, absolutely.
In my mind, that's a relatively easier thing to do versus the cost of owning. So for now, I actually just went out yesterday and I did the math. I've driven about 15 miles in the last 30 days. And if you think about, cost of ownership per mile, it's close to, $70, $80. So, when you do that math, it becomes really easy to get comfortable with Uber, or if not Uber, then a lot of these fractional ownership or, renting a car from a pool and using it for a day and returning it back to the pool, those sort of business models. And those, Gen Y has been using these business models for, quite a bit now. Last 10 years, they've sort of gotten comfortable with these, models like Zipcar and things of that nature. So I have a feeling that, you can bring a box of, disinfectant wipes and, solve that problem in about 30 seconds versus the cost of ownership, which can really, when unemployment is, near 20%, and when people are really concerned about day-to-day expenses, that's a much harder battle to fight.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we were talking about. Frank was also one of our hypotheses in the shift to mobility is subscriptions. I know subscriptions were kind of going through a big ditch in the road towards Q3 and Q4 of last year, but I think subscriptions are going to make a roaring comeback, and in a different form. Might not be you buy a Cadillac and you get a BMW and you get a whole bunch in exchange. You probably might just own one car, and a subscription allows you to do this. I think subscription models might be something people might look at to the future, right? Especially with a huge used vehicle inventory, right? This is a huge inventory, right? So I think subscriptions are probably going to make a comeback. So
yeah, the challenge. I'm sorry. The challenge on subscription still is the depreciation factor,
mm-hmm.
and somebody's got to figure out how to work around that. And of course, the decline in used vehicle values has really tanked the depreciation. It's made it a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But I'm with you, Ravi. I believe subscription's going to make a comeback, but people have to figure out how to get around the declining used vehicle value.
Absolutely.
So I'm also thinking that it's a huge opportunity for the manufacturer side, because low mileage leases are now possible if I get to work at home. So the ability to get one car, but get a nicer car than I would traditionally have. So it's something larger, something that's there. And a 7,000 or an 8,000 mile lease is now possible, which will raise the residual so that my payment becomes lower. And it's something along those lines, where if you're looking at traditionally, everybody goes in and says, yeah, give me the 10,000 mile lease because I want the low payment. And then they ended up paying mileage fees at the end because we all drive more than the 10,000 miles. And so manufacturers have the ability to start to do that. And it's I think that's gonna be a bigger opportunity for the manufacturer to keep new cars moving in the economy.
That's an interesting thing. You're saying it allows you to do lower mileage leases on a more frequent.
But right, my experience, with my wife running the #1 Fiat store, right? She had she was just moving a whole bunch of those when she had a $69 lease payment. Right. Or a $49 lease payment, right? Everybody's like, my gosh, that's like going out to dinner and that's my monthly payment. And so it was like, she had lines outside of her dealership and had to hand out tickets to everybody to make sure she helped them in order. Right. But that's because it was so insanely low. And again, that just made a push towards everybody saying, I don't have to pay gas. It takes me $4 to charge my car for 100 miles. Right. The big shift is going to be going towards, I look at it and say leasing electric vehicles and things along those lines. And
so exactly. So Frank and I have spoken about this a lot of times, and we've discussed this and we've presented this. So we look at all this saying, hey, listen, these are facts. These are concerns. These are these are hindrances. This is what is happening in the market. How can you leverage that and find opportunities? And one of the things we were looking at, and that's where Frank also was talking about retail, the depreciation value. We thought subscription, and I think that subscription is the new lease, right? Instead, if you think of a lease is an evolution of our capital lending system since the 80s, right? But I think the subscription model, in whatever form it evolves right now, might be the new quote unquote lease. You might not, and going back to Joe's point, absolutely, right? For about $100, if you can get a choice of a fleet of vehicles and you're just paying $100 till perpetuity, might as well keep those things ringing back and leave it to the dealer to figure out used lease and all that stuff, right? So the details behind it, how to upgrade it. We spoke about upgrades and stuff like that. So I think you're very right. And yeah. So this is, I mean, I had inventory build up. I had some macro unemployment. We spoke about it. I'd like to spend some time next time. Perhaps we are going to see this on what type of vehicles people will gravitate towards, right? We are talking about what is happening and what people are doing to mitigate it. But this was an interesting thing where we'd love to talk. So anyway, countermeasures. We have heard about the big countermeasures. I'm looking at smaller countermeasures. I just threw some charts on the table there. Hyundai's assurance program, the 7-year lease. I know, Alexander, and we have spoken about it. I dug this up. So a lot of companies, many automakers are moving to offer 0% financing, 84 months in an effort to boost sales. I took that, grabbed that picture, and I brought it back up. This picture was there on my September last year chart, and now it's actually becoming mainstream. Jeep, Chrysler, General Motors, a whole bunch of companies have offered this right now officially, and they've rolled it out in a much more aggressive manner. How to buy with new terms so that you can at least come back. So, which is a very interesting thing. That's one of the countermeasures that's being applied. This, I think, is an accelerator. I think a lot of companies, Michigan requires you to go online. Your dealership, you can't be at a dealership without a mask and a 6-foot distance. And that's no longer a joke telling your sales guy, right? I mean, how do you train your new sales guy right now, Joe, with your hero model? I was going to ask you that question last week, right? You have this brilliant model, you sit across a table looking at the buyer. How do you do this, right? And find, and talk to buyers. How do you get them, right? So it's an interesting shift.
Yeah, Ravi, one of the things that I've been hearing a lot about is the shift to online selling, right?
That's exactly.
And there has been legislation in a lot of places, a lot of states, that have prohibited online sales, but we're seeing some of those barriers come down, right? Michigan recently, is allowing online transactions. Colorado has said, will allow EVs to be sold online. And I think as a result of COVID, we're going to see a lot of these online barriers come down. But at the same time, I just heard a seminar recently, or an online webinar, that basically said 58% of the dealers don't have a good digital sales process. So we're seeing dealers scramble to put a digital sales process in place that is really robust. And so the opportunity, I think, for some companies that are in this digital selling business is for them to really gear up and transform dealers into digital sales stores. And that takes a lot of work, right? It's how do we make the sale online and have video content and do all the things that you need to do. But the fallout from that shift to online selling is dealers are going to reduce staff in the sales department, so there's going to be more layoffs, right? And
if they haven't already, I mean, I think the lowest number is 50% of the sales department of the dealerships I train, and one of them was at 90%.
Yeah, yes, right. So there's more people unemployed, and dealers, of course, are scrambling to figure out how to make money, because when you're online, there's more transparency, right? And although the data that I've seen says you're still able to sell F&I product and make some money there, it's still going to be a scramble to figure out how you're going to make money in that process.
Right.
But I personally, when I look at it, is I've been pushing this for a number of years just because of understanding the trend and where it's going. I don't necessarily need salespeople to build value in a product and then sit down and negotiate anymore. And so this was a model we did very successfully 4 years ago at several of the stores, where you were not a salesperson, you were a product specialist. Your job was to simply walk the person through which vehicle they wanted, know everything about every model line so that you can answer every question, and then bring them in and just say, whatever's on the web is what you're paying. We're not arguing. And then they sit in front of a finance manager who was the only person that was technically the person who could add additional products. And it took all of the fight out of it, and it took everything else that's there. And if you know how to present to the people that are sitting in front of you, like with the hero model, or I have other models that we utilize on doing that, I can get over 50, 60, 70% of them to see the value in a certain product. And we've morphed products for finance and things. Like, there was never a lease wear and tear before. Now there's something, if I lease a car, I'm going to get that and go through. And so I look and say, all we did was the automotive business has been sitting on its hands for a number of years fighting going to this. Now there's no choice but to step up and say, here, this is where we're at. And so looking at that, what do I want to do? I want to capitalize as much as I can. So if you're ever coming into my showroom, it's going to be by appointment only. So now what value did I just provide to my customer? Hey, it's going to be one-on-one, you and I, but at the same time, I'm only going to have 5 people that I can put in my showroom so that we can all maintain distance and not get crazy with what's there. So it becomes a much more intimate process. But the dealers that I'm currently working with, sales are in half of what they used to be or lower, but the gross profit is up. And it's because with a 0% for 84 months and all these other things, the price haggling isn't the hardest part anymore. And if I'm going to go sit as the person working at a dealership, if I have to sit here with a potential scary event that could be happening, I don't have to discount my cars to get it underneath everybody else's price point. And so I can hold the value and sit with the people and sell it.
To that, a sort of counterpoint to that, and I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here. But if let's say everyone has, all the dealerships have the ability to buy the car online, and the payment is what it is online. The guy in the dealership in the next county could be 5% cheaper, offers home delivery. What's stopping the consumer from going to that dealership versus buying from you? So I think that sort of becomes a little bit of a challenge, because now everyone's sort of going to the lowest common denominator, right? When price is not an issue, then there's no difference between the same exact model in your parking lot versus the next guy's parking lot.
Right. And so your average consumer's not willing to drive more than 25 miles from where they live to go get a vehicle, right? It takes a very, very price conscious person. I mean, and I've done it. I've done let me completely give away cars and go back of cost and do all that. But that's only a win if you're playing a volume game. And right now, everybody is getting woken up to the volume game doesn't make sense anymore. I need to be making money and selling vehicles and not hoping for factory payouts. Right. And that's where you're looking at it. Cause I mean, guys, I ran a dealership. We went to 1,000 cars a month. And the whole reason was 60% of all my cars were losers online, priced as losers. Right. So the 40% that I could make money on and do things was great. And then I was using the factory's money to offset, because I got paid on all 40% I made plus the 60% I lost, and I can throw some net on the board. But again, when you look and say everybody is scaling back to say, I'm gonna defend the value of my product more now, Okay. And truly the manufacturer said years ago, they said, here's the cost to the dealer and here's the window sticker, right? There is no huge margins anymore that are there. So it's going to come down to the level of service in which I provide. If cost was everything, then there was never going to be a Nordstrom's to provide a better service and a better plan.
Right. But yeah, I think the point I'm trying to make is that, so I really do take your point about driving more than 25 miles to pick up your car. But you can see the slide where, Ravi's saying that almost everybody's offering home delivery. So that takes the first thing out of account. And then the second thing is that a lot of these newer cars, electric cars, require a lot less maintenance and service. So now there's less of an incentive for the customer to actually come into the showroom, come into the service center, because the cars are just better. That there's home delivery, there's pickup and drop off service. So those are all the things that I'm trying to highlight and say that why.
I agree. I don't take offense to any of the challenging, but I will tell you, if I'm sitting in the dealer position, I'm not going to take my staff to go deliver a car 50 miles away to lose money anymore.
I see.
Does that make sense? So when you say that, I'm going to go, well, if that's the price point you're trying to be at, then you can come in and pick up your vehicle.
Got it. Okay.
But I'm not paying hourly for somebody to go there, then pay for an Uber to bring them back.
Right.
Knowing that, Deval, I'll never get your service business. Right. So I have no upside win anymore. And this is where your dealers are being woke up, because everybody went to, let's race to the bottom. Let's race to the bottom, race to the bottom. And now they're saying, well, I can't stay at the bottom and sell 1/3 of what I normally do.
Right. You can't stay in business.
Right. And so
I think that's exactly where we were going with this, with Frank and our previous hypotheses, right? And exactly what you guys are talking about, right? That model in a dealership, it has to change completely. And this is that big wake up call. And yeah, absolutely. And how they look at it, and whether they're selling them a car or a subscription, or that package is going to be of question. And then it comes with these alternatives, how to keep them there, right? So yeah, absolutely. I think good.
Ravi, do you mind if I ask a quick question? I really want to get Joe's and Frank's view on what they think of Tesla's model and not using dealerships. I'd love to get their insights.
Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I think it's terrific. But Tesla has so many advantages, right? And I don't know how well it will translate for anybody else. I think we're going to see in the near future how well it translates. But first of all, Tesla does no marketing, right? Their marketing is all Elon Musk, and he's generated probably hundreds of millions of dollars in publicity, which has helped the brand tremendously. Tesla has made the investment in the back end in terms of customer service on the vehicle, but there was certainly a lot of cachet to buying a Tesla early on. So I guess the question is, could anybody else duplicate that, get free marketing to the extent that Elon Musk generated, and be able to price the vehicle at $100,000 and generate that kind of profitability that he could reinvest into manufacturing plants? So I have a lot of admiration for what Tesla's accomplished. I think it's awesome. And I just have a question mark as to whether or not anybody else can duplicate that.
And I'm in agreement. Again, you can't have multiple disruptors in an actual retail environment, right? So Tesla came in and changed it, but Tesla came in and changed the high end, right? And so your average individual, your person with challenge credit and this and that, where would they go? And you can't get to the point of just come down and pick up your car. kind of deal, everything's going to have to be negotiated. Everything will have to be put in based on bank approvals and things like that. And truly, a lot of people are more comfortable going into an establishment that they know they can see, touch, feel, right? I want to know that, and again, in Orange County, I want to know that there's somebody there that's going to get hurt by my bad Yelp review. Where if I'm sitting down and I never see anybody and I don't see anything on there, and you are a web-based thing, then any bad review will get lost in a transactional purpose. Okay, and it's like, great. So are you a real business? Are you not? Yeah, a car showed up at my house. Okay, but it becomes just simply, what am I paying and what am I getting, as opposed to the human nature besides, well, I want to take care. I like my salesperson. I want to do that with them. I want to do all this, right? Google and Amazon are still playing in the car model. They're still trying to say, how do I get from the manufacturer and just drop it off at their door? They're spending all kinds of money on that. But if those two giants can't figure out how to get it right, especially with all the dealers, right? Because now you just gave somebody blanket across the United States, which means there's technically a store next door to me now, where the way all the rules and regulations are, you're going to have to completely disrupt and completely destroy, break down, and come back up. And there's too many lives affected for that to be something that's going to happen anytime soon. Because, I mean, why would we bail out all the manufacturers in 2008 when we lived through that? Why did we go for all the car manufacturers and do it? Because it gets close to 50% of all jobs are somehow tied into the automotive industry. And if we lose that, then we're gone, right, as a society.
Yeah. And just to close out this Tesla model, Tesla versus the rest of the industry, right? Which is the Tesla model is being looked at by some of the OEMs coming in, newer OEMs coming in. But this is where your question of establishment versus new comes in, right? Established companies are franchises so far. All OEMs so far are franchises. They've been using the franchise model. The franchise model says, I will, just like McDonald's, right? I will give you the buns, I will give you the slices, I'll give you the onions, just go push it and you make money on top of it, right? What Tesla is saying is, listen, I'm gonna give you the car, right? And I'm gonna give you a brand and experience, and I will control all aspects of it from end to end, right? And more importantly, and this came out in the Mach-E launch, the Ford Mach-E launch, Elon Musk, Tesla is how much, Frank says, he's generated so much marketing income. Tesla is about Elon Musk able to stand up on a stage and say, book a car for $20,000. Okay. And the number of people booking it is directly proportional to the experience that he's able to give, right? The Model S, Model Y, you went and purchased a Model Y, you will see Elon always selling the next snake oil, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not an anti-snake oil guy, but you know, he's selling snake oil, right? He's selling China. He's finished selling Model X. Nothing wrong with it. All of us are learning from it. It's a transformation that customers are experiencing. But getting to Elon, I think one of the things in this franchise-based model that can be, I think, learned. This guy spoke about it. The new Jim Hackett, I think, spoke about it in his board meeting a couple of months back. The ability to booking, while we are talking about subscriptions and stuff like that, pre-booking might be a big change in this franchise model, which is something very, very interesting. Okay, you're not given an allocation. What Frank used to do as a senior vice president, he would say, hey, listen, I'm going to allocate so many vehicles, go push the metal. Right. But if in a very convoluted manner, this one comes back and says, hey, pre-book these cars, we might be looking at a little bit of a model change there. But
hey Joe,
very difficult to do that. Very difficult to this thing is. Let's just, I know we are at 57, Dhaval. Just give me a few more minutes. Somebody was asking a question. Let's just hold off on that. I just had two more things before we go to closing thoughts on this. I think from a countermeasure standpoint, what happens in home delivery is a huge thing. I think we are looking at a very different model out here, right? So home delivery means you are still needing transport, right, to get things to you. I think there's an interesting opportunity from countermeasure standpoint. I know we have 3 more minutes, so I just want to finish my slides and then get your thoughts back in. What's happening in China is a very interesting thing. I think they're getting back online, and we are keeping an advanced eye on it. The way this whole thing is set up, the way my brain, the way Traction Labs works is we look at all these leading indicators, right? You are buying a Model X, you are buying a Model Y, the Model Y, right? The SUV, the thing. How do you, yes, this is a huge bump in the road. What Frank and I were talking about over the past 3 years is, hey, there is a change coming. Customers are experiencing this better change. Now it's hitting them flat on the face. And Joe is saying that too, right? I mean, dealers are now forced to change. And how do you develop a strategy for them? We can help you do that. We can help you exactly implement a strategy. Look at the goods of Tesla, look at the bads of General Motors or whatever it is, and create a strategy to say, hey, listen, at 12 million SAR or 13 million SAR, how do you make money? How does the corner business work very well, right? And just countermeasure wise, right? And China is doing some stuff which is very interesting that that I looked at, right? So, sorry, I did not mean to interrupt that question. I just wanted to finish this thought pattern before I threw it up or to the open. Somebody had a question also, so go ahead.
This is Matt. I was trying to ask Joe a question. My background's consumer packaged goods, so my family's background's automotive. So, but one of the things that the consumer package industry saw with Amazon was what Amazon really focused on is really lubricating the buy experience, right? There's buy box. How do I get past any friction on checkout? And basically left pricing to almost like third party to figure out, all right, how do you price your good? I'm kind of wondering, do you see a similar aggregation happening on the buy process of vehicles, or do you see it, being a lot of different things or aggregating up into one? Like, how do you actually see that adjustment happening as that buy process becomes more important?
So I will tell you, like, for example, Longo Toyota, which is the largest dealership in the world, right? The only person who sells more Toyotas is Toyota, the manufacturer, selling to their dealers. They turned around and said, our showroom's closed. We're going to do everything via online application, pull it through. And so their pricing model, what they normally went to on a email only basis, because they don't advertise price other than here's the website, here's the MSRP, get your price. So their pricing model is there. It was always hidden to their competitors. And so when you look at it and say, okay, now they just raised up the number. So they go through and do that. They will then send a little slide deck of the actual products for F&I and have an F&I person call you and explain the details. And so they're trying to get that to get better and better. The issue is all of your sales staff has been trained to do it face to face. And so they suck over the phone. Right, in general, because that's, again, me, I'm the phone guy. I look just like Brad Pitt over the phone. So it's going to be me helping them to sell better by building the value over the phone. But this, as soon as we can get to the point of going click, 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 and adding to it, I think it's only going to make it that much easier for us to transition to a profit-based model that's going to come in and say, look, I'm going to go to the one closest to me. If the difference is between, $5 and $7 a month, I'm going to the dealership closest to me, the one that'll deliver the car and bring it to me. But the basis of all this is that, again, my wife's dealership says, call us first. And then they gather all the information they can, and they negotiate what they're going to do with the customer after the credit app has been filled out. So what I've seen across Southern California up, from Fresno down to San Diego, is that the great credit people that have money are who's coming out right now to get the 0% for 84 months on the car that they want. And the other transition is all of the bad credit people that got turned down before are coming back to see if the bank will buy them now. The people in the middle, like Frank had mentioned, are just frozen. They're just sitting back going, I don't know what's going to happen. Am I going to go to one car? Am I going to stay working at home? And so, but the dealership doesn't want everything to go online.
Yeah.
Right. That's their fear, is that I lose the ability to get you emotional and it stays all logical. And so that's what I watch, and it's just, they're scared.
And we'll talk about a lot of where they're going pretty soon. So hopefully in the next week, Thursday, when we are talking about this, I'd like to bring in some of those thoughts and actually see what their path forward is. I mean, service, the subscriptions and change to the dealership completely, and that model completely is a very interesting conversation that is going to happen. Frank, you had any thoughts? I'm going to give the thing to Alexander also before our closing thoughts. I'll then do a sales pitch out here and then.
Nope, I'm good, Ravi.
Okay. Frank, thank you for recommending this topic. I thought it was very interesting, and I'm glad we all had to, we all had a chance to talk about it, because I think there are lots of stuff going on which we can all, think through as we prepare for the future, right? So very cool. Thank you for the topic. Alexander, did you have any thoughts on this one before I just go around the table once?
No, I thought the conversation was quite interesting. There are some parts where I might have a little bit of pushback on how quickly are people going to re-embrace fractional ownership or Uber, Lyft, etc. There's a lot of things going on with the way customers are either perceiving the threat or not perceiving the threat. There's a lot of things going on with this. But that being said, I felt this was a very insightful and thoughtful discussion for everybody. So great job.
Thank you. And thank you for your support. We are looking forward to hearing a lot more about what Strategic Vision has to say. I know hopefully we can, I know you're having a series of conversations with your present clients right now, but perhaps later we can talk about the work that you have done from a research standpoint in subscriptions and stuff like that. So I know you've done a lot of work, and hopefully we can walk through that in this. So thank you for your support. Quickly, hey Pankaj, guys, I know we are late out here. So Pankaj, anything? Pankaj, Ashok, you guys have been quiet. Any thoughts? Otherwise, Dhawal, any closing thoughts?
No, just a quick comment. A great conversation, gives us an idea of what's going on in the field, more than just sitting in web sessions or Zoom meetings or what have you.
Thank you.
So listening to people like yourself, Frank, Joe, it's very informative. That's for sure.
Thank you.
I enjoyed the information, and I think it was all enlightening. How the sales and leasing and all this work. Thank you for inviting.
Thank you. Thanks for joining. Talk to you next week. Dhawal, any thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you to Joe, Frank, and everybody else, Ravi, you especially, for organizing this. But just great to hear your insights, and thank you for everything that you guys are doing and sharing with us. So
fantastic. Hopefully you guys will, some of you guys, if you know customers or clients, we're all here in it for the revenue. We all get to know each other. If you want a growth playbook, let Traction Labs help you. Let us, whether it's your say a dealership or a small business, an accessory company affected by it, we can help. I think there are specific strategies that we can help out with. So would love to do that. That's what we do. Okay, so just a little bit of a soft sell out there. Everybody say thank you to Mr. Matt Zimmer also. He's dealt with all this back end stuff, and thank you, Matt. I really appreciate it, man.
You bet.
Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll talk next week. Look out for the topic, sign up online, and looking forward to a good conversation next week. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Take care. Bye.